Greetings, garden friends! It is the middle of July, midsummer, and today we're briefly touring the garden to see what is blooming and doing well. I'll also have an update for someone who had asked about how the oak leaf hydrangeas I started from seed last year are doing, and when they start to look like oak leaf hydrangeas. I also filmed a propagation or general garden vlog on this day that I'll be uploading soon. Take a look at this cottage garden bed. I just gave it a water when I came out because everything was really drooping in the heat. I have some pink surprise calendulas that will be blooming soon. I just planted this bed this year. Some castor oil bean plants. Some marigolds. Deep purple nicotiana. Pretty excited about my datura. It's putting on some buds. This one is the furthest along. I think that I'll be blooming in, I don't know, a week or two. I have some dahlias that are suffering a little bit from the heat. You can tell by the leaves that are a bit curled. Even the calendula, which I think is supposed to tolerate the heat better, and the marigolds have been suffering from this heat. You can see where one of these calendulas went up and then just couldn't make it in the heat. Some beautiful marigolds. This is some Malabar spinach that I sowed in directly into this pot. And some, I think this is cinnamon basil, a few marigolds. And then we have a bunch of these dwarf peppers that I started from seed and winter sowing. You can see that they are getting loaded up with blooms that are turning into teeny tiny little pepper plants. I have a few more of them over here. They're a little farther along. Look at how pretty this dahlia is. This is how they usually look in the Bishop's Children seed packet photos. There are a couple of plants in this planter. They haven't really filled out yet this season. I have some heliotrope that is starting to bud up. You can see it there. Today I'm going to take this nicotiana out of these planters and put them in beds because they look really pretty, but I didn't really realize how they were going to grow, the habit that they were going to have. I don't really think that they work so well for planters. So I'm going to take them out of a couple of these and find a couple dahlias to put in there. I'm consolidating my seed trays so that they aren't taking up so much of the space, so I can put my planters in the sun. You can see that the strip that I plant between the driveway, our driveway and our neighbor's driveway is looking pretty good this year. We have some waste baskets over the end here so that these marigolds can fill in. But some of these Velvet Queen sunflowers are starting to look really good. A few of the marigolds, and they're just all kinds, are starting to fill in. I did have a little bit of germination on gomphrena, so I've placed them along there. We'll see if they do anything. I had some celosia that I put in there. They're pretty small. You can see I have spider plant or cleome. I have tithonia that's coming up, and then there's a bunch of those Velvet Queen sunflowers sprinkled in there, and then a patch of echinacea, which is looking really beautiful. I was actually pulling that out of the garden this year, and I gave a bunch of clumps of it away when we put in the little fence at the back, but I'm glad that I didn't give this clump away because it's looking so pretty. You can see all of my oak leaf hydrangeas. This is an update for the one person that asked about the oak leaf hydrangeas. I just recently up-potted them from 4-inch pots, so I don't know, I would say they're about 8 to 10 inches tall, and they seem to enjoy that they've gotten up-potted. I have been pinching out the centers of some of them just to see if that helps. I don't think that that section will be woody by the time winter comes around, but I do think that it sends a signal back down into the plant and it creates a stockier stem. And you can see some of them that I've done that with are already starting to set out laterals. So the ones that were looking spindly, I did that with. You can see one of them that I had up-potted into a larger pot last year is in a pretty large pot now. That one's, I would say, at least more than a foot tall. And it has a side stem. So here's what I have in the plant nursery right now. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, almost 4 trays of Black-Eyed Susan. That's the Goldstrom variety that I collected seed from last year. I have some Golden Jubilee Agastache, or Agastache, however you want to say it. And it is trying to bloom the first year. I think I should probably just cut these off, but I think that I have, and they just put them up again. I'll come along here. These are Bleeding Heart Heliopsis. I do have some of these in the beds that I started from seed last fall, and I think that they would be blooming now, but I ended up pinching them because you can see that they, with not a ton of sun, can have kind of spindly stems. I have found that it isn't very useful to pinch the stems at this point as seedlings. They're not going to branch, they're just working on roots. This is some red Monarda, which I think is very pretty. I actually don't have any Monarda in the garden yet. This is a seedling of an Agastache that I bought at a nursery last year, and it's looking pretty good. I think it's a little bit rooted in some of these, so they'll be happy to go out into the garden. I have some bronze fennel, which I didn't really bother dividing much. You can see it was trying to put up a little bit of a bloom there, but I did put some of these out in the beds, but they got sort of swamped by annuals, so I'm not sure where I'm going to put these ones. I think that they're pretty root bound by this point. I have all of my hydrangea props for this year. These are ones that I cut when I was pruning in March, and then I usually root them in water, but I think I might try to stick more of them and just see if they root that way this year. I have a couple little dahlias here. I don't think I'll be using those in my planters because they're not big enough. I do have some larger ones behind me that I think I forgot to show. I have some astilbe that I grew from seed that's not really doing so well. I have a couple of geraniums that I collected seed from last year, and these are blazing star geums. This is not my most productive geum. I did up-pot the geums that are doing really well, and they're a little bit later in the driveway. This is all mountain mint. And then here is some Penstemon mystica. And I'm just enjoying this darker color on the leaves in the driveway because once it gets into my garden that is full of shade, it really doesn't have much of this dark color. This is Starship Lobelia. I'm gonna do a little bit of propagation today, so I might just cut some of these stems and stick them and see if I can increase the amount that I have that way. That is how I have a ton of this red ageratum. I originally winter sowed this, and then it was getting all spindly, so I cut off the tops. I stuck it around 2 pots, and that's how I ended up getting 2 pots. One of them I planted out. This one is just insurance in case some of my annuals die. Look at the beautiful edges on this lobelia. So pretty. Nice dark stems. This is some of that Valentine bleeding heart. I didn't get as many seeds last year as I did, or last fall as I did the year before. So I had a lot of these plants last year, but to be honest, I have them in all of my beds now. I gave away one of these plants earlier this year, and they will be dying back pretty soon. So I just wanted to show how pretty they look. Here are some of my hydrangeas that I propagated last year that I didn't sell. Oh, I might put those somewhere. I have some trays of this purple heuchera. There are multiple plants in each pot, so I think I'll be dividing them. This is the lictrum. Oh, this is so pretty. Look at these. This I grew from seed that I collected from my own plants. I had tried buying the lictrum seed and sowing it, and I hadn't had any success, so I finally just bought some plants and collected seed off of my own, and it germinated really well. So there's many plants in each one of these. I think I'll divide each one of these into at least one other pot before I would put them out. So maybe today or to the next time I'm out, I will do that. So here are some Baptisia plants. I found the seed just walking around in the Berkshires, I think, a couple years ago. And we'll see, I'm not sure what color those will be. These are all panicle hydrangeas that I grew from seed this year. So I have multiple trays of these, and for some reason I guess I just forgot to separate and up-pot these. But I've up-potted most of them, but you can see they're doing a really good job. I'll show you some more that I up-potted a week or 2 ago. Here are, these look very similar, but they're actually Caryopteris. So this is a pink Caryopteris, and I'm not actually sure this is hardy in my zone 6A. It didn't come back in the bed, so I'm not really sure if I'm going to give it a lot of space in the garden. Oh wow, that really needs to be soaked. I'm having a hard time getting some of these pots watered these days because it's been so hot. Here are some props. This is some 9 bark that I propagated the other week. It had already rooted, so I just potted it up. I don't really expect any roots yet, but I have a tray of that. I have a tray of mums. I'm going to propagate more of those from the front of the house today. Another tray of this Caryopteris. And I'm trying to remember, oh, this is Veronica. Oh yes, this is the one that I collected seed from for my plants last year. This is looking good. I haven't actually looked at this for a little while. I have some Astrantia, and the Astrantia I grew from seed last year that I planted out in the fall. One of them did bloom this year. I'm having a little bit of trouble with that bed. Some of the plants that I got from a nursery were actually diseased, and so I just pulled those out today, so hopefully that bed can sort of solarize and get a little healthier. These are lime green Nicotiana. I was a little Nicotiana obsessed earlier in the season, and I kept just sowing more seeds. So I'm not really sure these will do anything this year, but they do tend to go from small to big really fast once they get going. This is some euphorbia I grew from seed. This is supposed to be, what is that one with the yellow center that's kind of a nice rounded shape that blooms in the spring? That was what this was supposed to be. It'll come to me. What did I say it was? I put unknown. Oh, it was supposed to be polychrome. This does not look like polychrome. It's definitely some sort of euphorbia because I've been pinching out the center and it will have a white latex sap, but it's not the polychrome. So if you recognize this spur, just euphorbia, let me know. Here are some of those panicle hydrangeas that I actually separated out and potted up. I'll show you some of the larger ones too. These are some of the larger ones which I pinched. I have in like pretty big 1-gallon pots, which might have been overkill, but their root systems were going really well, so I thought that they deserved a slightly bigger house. These are my geums that are looking really good. They had overgrown their 4-inch pots and were drying out really fast, and so I gave them these larger pots as well. These are koi geums. I think I'll grow this again. They seem very happy and robust. These are a couple little dahlias. These I might put in the pots that I was saying I was going to redo. This is supposed to be a special viola that I got seed for. It's supposed to be Viola Labrador. I don't know if it actually is. Where I got that seed, I'm not sure I will be ordering from anymore because a bunch of the seed that I bought from them, it was hazards, ended up not being what it was supposed to or had very poor germination. And when I reached out to them, they didn't actually respond. So not really any customer service. So I'll probably try to get seeds elsewhere in the future. Here are some mini oak leaf hydrangeas. So I thought that these were just stunted. I did pot them up, but I'm changing my perspective on them. I think maybe that they're just miniature versions. They're not stunted. So we'll see what they do. Also, I am soaking my strawberry pots in a water tub because they really dry out pretty fast. But this is Rainbow Treasure coming into bloom, or it was blooming here. This was a pink one. And I do have a little strawberry forming. So these are just plants that I grew from seed this year. And yeah, I'm really excited about it. I don't know if these side ones will have the time to bloom or not, but I will say these strawberry pots do dry out pretty fast. This is those Frizzle Sizzle lemon berry pansies. I've cut these back I think at least once or twice and put them in the shade, given them a little fertilizer, and they keep coming back for me, so that's great. There's some more parsley. These violas that I have in here I think need to be cut back. So it is the middle of July and the Tess d'Urberville rose is really shooting up. I think it's going to be at the top of the obelisk by the end of the season. I've got a very small amount of black spot on the lower leaves, but not very much. I've planted out a bunch of little tiny annuals down here. By the end of the season, maybe they'll have grown in. And that is pinks, that is not grass. I am loving the veronicas that I have surrounding the roses this year, and I think that I'm going to try to propagate some of those tonight before I'm done. Here's a really pretty part of the garden right now. This is the lilac bed, and I have a Gabriel Oak rose blooming on the left there. I have black-eyed Susans blooming in the middle, and the rabbits had actually eaten a bunch of the black-eyed Susans this year, so I'm just glad that they are blooming. We have a dahlia there that I grew from seed last year. Another dahlia here that I also grew from seed. And my husband is filling up the bird bath over there. That's what that noise is. But look at how beautiful some of these dahlias are. I love the two-toned effect that some of them have, and they are a little bit suffering in the heat. Those need to be cut back, but overall I think that the effect is quite nice. The echinaceas do not want to stand up back there at all. I have some cleome there that's starting to bloom. And there's a bee on this Golden Jubilee agastache that I grew from seed last year. This is some white calamintha that I also grew from seed. A lot of this seemed to have died back this year, so I'm glad that it re-emerged. We did have a very harsh winter. And then here's a bunch of that lemon frizzleberry pansy. I put these into the bed after that they were kind of done from the pots, because they get a lot of shade here. Some Amsonia right there. More Datura. Lots and lots of Nicotiana, which smells amazing, even if it's taking over some things. I have a little rose that I grew from seed right here, and it is getting eaten while it's being shaded out by these plants, so it's on my list of things to do, to dig that up and to save it. But I just love what it's looking like here. You can see we did get our fence put in behind there. And so I'm going to be working on seeing if I can get anything to bloom in this section, to even just grow, really. You can see 3 large shrubs behind the beech tree. We transplanted those and they were really big last year, so really they were thriving in full sun, and I think that they've just been surviving there. So it's a very difficult place to plant. I do have 2 clethra right there in the back. They are not doing so well. Here's a look at the eye bed that I finally planted up. I'd been using this as a repository for extra dirt while we were doing the fence project. So I have some dahlias in here that are going to be blooming fairly soon, but I might yank 1 or 2 of them and just put them in one of those pots that I was showing you earlier, because then I'll get a little better blooms sooner. I really love this dahlia from seed, and it was a magenta color, more of a magenta color last year, and it's softened to more of a rose color this year. I really like it. You can see how it has a very, I don't know, rangy, long-stemmed habit in the shade here, but because it is a full clump, it is growing. Not a lot happening in this section right now. I did put a couple of dahlias, one right there, and here. You can see it doesn't have any blooms or buds on it. I just found these lamb's ear up front, so I decided to put those there. Now I cut back this wolfsbane, also known as monk's hood or aconite, if you're a Harry Potter fan, and I was trying to root that. I don't know if it worked, but it's looking like it's bouncing back and it might actually have some blooms. I'm thinking of cutting all of my monk's hood and giving it the Chelsea chop or whatever chop in June or late June, because look at how big they are otherwise. Oh my. I planted these in the front of the bed because they were so tiny last year. I grew them from seed. And I didn't really think that, I thought I would need to keep an eye on them. They are taller than I am now. So, very interesting. I have some toad lilies that are putting on some buds. Now this bed is a little bit of a mess because I had to rip out the diseased hydrangeas that were there. But I am getting some blooms from my berry white hydrangeas back here that are starting to get some height, which is great. Recently cut back all of the geranium that was lining this bed, so it is flushing out again, and it's giving some air circulation to the bed. I have some ladies' mantle. Some of this, there are a couple up front that I grew from seed, but I think this is from a nursery. Still have not been very successful growing that from seed. Now, if you ignore the Home Depot buckets, which we're deadheading into, this is a nice view. I do have some paint and some supplies to redo that door and the garage, a nice sapphire blue. So hopefully that will happen pretty soon, but it's been so hot. This is the first day I could have possibly done that, and I need to work on the garden. I have some incredible hydrangeas on the left, and what is hanging over us is the lilac. We cut it back a fair bit this year, so hopefully the increased air circulation will mean that it doesn't drop its leaves. So here is that difficult shady spot. I do have some giant caramel heuchera that I divided after buying last year. I also collected the seed and I grew that. I have a little bleeding heart that I need to transplant, but you'll see that these are some clethra shrubs. These are supposed to be able to manage some pretty harsh shade. They are getting watered, at least occasionally. Yeah, just not doing so well here. This absolutely magnificent copper beech means that there's not a lot of water left for any other plants. We're going to be redoing the border of the bed up front on the property line with these brown stones that were already at the house. So this area, I know, don't come for me, but I was trying to get vinca started here because it's supposed to be quote-unquote invasive. It is not invasive here. It's been here for 3 years, and it's pretty much, I think it's smaller than it was when we got it, unfortunately. I have a few plants there that I had to dig up when we did the fence. So we're going to be putting boards underneath the fence so that we can plant up against it. We don't have to worry about anything being blown through. You can see this area has gotten even more shady since it was put up. And yeah, it's a difficult place to have anything grow. We might have an arborist come and open up the canopy just slightly for this section. What else do I have going? There's a bunch more of this monkshood that's getting a little bit of evening sunlight. My thalictrum, which is really big. So I don't really do very much over here. There's some Shasta daisies. My husband's been deadheading those. This area was a lot of foxgloves, but they're over now. I have a, oh, I was just forget the name of this rose, Malden Woods rose. I think this is going to have to be moved in the fall because it's a little bit too shady here now for it. Some black-eyed Susans that are just starting, some obedient plant. I started these from seed last year and they look really nice. They're doing very well in the dry. And they stand really upright, which for the most part anyways, which I appreciate a lot in a flower in my garden. I have some tiger lilies, and that's mostly because I am a big fan of Alice in Wonderland, and also I just really like how they look in a vase inside. Some echinacea, some violas. Oh, and I guess I spoke too soon. Some of these obedient plant have fallen over. But I'm gonna cut these back, or I don't know if I can cut them back. Look at how many nice bees are on here. Because the plants have started to push up side shoots. So maybe we'll just propagate some of them and leave the rest for the bees. I have some, oh, and look. I've got some beneficial hoverflies. And then this phlox is looking really nice. Feverfew going to seed, so we'll be collecting that. I have a row of heuchera that I started from seed here. It's a green heuchera. This bed is struggling a little bit. It's been very dry. We have that same wolfsbane, some astilbe. I threw dahlias in here, but they're not super pleased with their fate. I have some, that is not my lawn sign. Have some agastache. And black-eyed Susans. I have some sedum here when I just kind of gave up, and I've put very dry loving plants up here, so it's been a lot better. I had more lavender, but I put them in a pot so I could enjoy them more. But you can see I have mountain mint, agastache. I've slowly been taking off everything here because I'm going to be redoing the property line there. And this is what it looks like. I have my oak tree bed. These are all things that I propagated or started from seed, a bunch of them anyways, like this hydrangea, that hydrangea. This hydrangea I did not propagate. It is a Pinky Winky. I have a couple of coral bell flowers still up there. I grew those from seed last year and they're looking really good in this dry spot. These are Bobo hydrangeas, which are actually starting to bloom. Isn't that amazing? They did not have any blooms on them when I bought them last June, and they did not bloom at all last year. So you can see the beautiful Japanese maple. This is just that common blood-good Japanese maple. This is the first thing that I planted at this house in 2021. Kind of maybe short-sighted, planting more shading plants, but what can you do?
If you've made it this far, thanks so much for joining me on this tour of my garden. Tell me, what is blooming well for you in your garden? Have you had any good or bad surprises this year? I think the Nicotiana has been my best new plant that I'll definitely grow again. So until next time, wishing you just the right amount of rain for your garden. Bye!